Hey there, lovely people. Welcome back to another Story Study Saturday. I'm Sammi, and I'm a writer who likes to learn about writing through reading and share what I learn with you. This week is fun because right now, in the moment that I am filming this, it is July 18th, and you aren't gonna see this for months. So that's pretty cool. The reason why that is because I won this book, which we are going to talk about today, in a giveaway. So I've got that young advanced reader copy, which is not very helpful for getting information out to you guys when it doesn't come out for a couple of months. I won this book in June in a Goodreads giveaway. I read it in July when I had COVID and I just disappeared out of nowhere. On sale 10/18/22. So that is 3 months exactly from today. Let's get into this. So this is Night of the Raven, Dawn of the Dove by this author whose name I tried to say 3 times and failed, I think. So I am just going to not try and absolutely butcher this name that I do not know how to pronounce. But I will say this book was amazing. So if you don't know anything about this book, which I assume you probably will not because it is not out yet, I will read off my summary that I got from reading. This book follows Katyani. I'm sorry in advance if I mess up any of the characters' names. I feel like they're all spelled phonetically, so I've been reading them phonetically, and I'm hoping that that is okay. But Katyani has spent her whole life knowing her role and her place in the kingdom that she protects. She is the designated bodyguard of the royal family and her soul is bonded with the queen. After several assassination attempts, she and the 2 princes are sent to a neutral school for their protection. There, she meets Dakish, who may or may not be the only good thing about being in a place so far from the palace. When the princes are called back to their kingdom early due to a threat to their kingdom, Katyani's world is flipped entirely on its head as she uncovers the many facets of reasons behind the war. So let's talk about my thoughts. For one, I absolutely adore Katyani. I think she is such an interesting character, and there are so many things about her that makes her super three-dimensional, and I absolutely love that because she feels more real than a lot of other main characters in similar types of stories. The moments between Katyani and Dakish are adorable, and it's really, really sweet to watch them like get more comfortable with each other and like who the other person is and bring out the other person's quirks in their situations. And it's really nice to see that it goes both ways because it starts out and it's very like Katyani's doing it. Katyani is flirting like a mad woman and she's having a blast with it, and then when he starts flirting back, it's amazing. I love it. It's such a natural development too, and I really appreciate that. The stakes in the story do a really good job of ebbing and flowing and moving with what Katyani's feeling and experiencing. The story starts off with these really, really high stakes, and you really feel it, and you're really immediately drawn into the story, which is really well done. You start off with like Katyani defending against a assassination attempt, and it's really great to like dive in hard like that into who this character is, what her values are, what she stands for, and really get to know that. And then with them going to this school, we follow along with how Katyani feels about it. So when they feel like there's no stakes, she gets anxious, and then you have like personal stakes that we're following, like how Katyani is feeling about what's going on rather than like there's assassination attempts happening, and it's a different type of stakes, but it moves fluidly from one to the other. The change really helps us empathize more with who Katyani is and care more about her story. All of the relationships that Katyani builds with the other people in the story are really well done. They are all different and unique to the person that she is interacting with, which makes each character that she interacts with a more three-dimensional character. When people interact with different people, they act differently than they do with like other people. So seeing how real these relationships are and watching like these characters change and alter how they behave depending on who they are around, who they are talking to, and what their relationship is like is really, really nice. Also, watching those relationships grow from point A to point B, you see that and you witness it and you see the development and the growing of respect both ways, from Katyani and to Katyani, both ways. It's really, really beautifully done. The world building in the story is also really beautiful because I am not familiar with this particular culture. It is set in ancient Indian lore and tradition. I do not have any experience with ancient Indian lore or tradition, but following the world building in this, it's really engaging and it feels like something that I know how it works right off the bat because of how well it's communicated. So some things that I think could be improved coming from my personal perspective, I gave this book 5 stars, like immediately. It was like no questions asked. It's a 5-star book. So these are definitely just like things that would have made my personal reading experience better, not necessarily that the book needs to be better, right? I think that some of the names were hard to differentiate between people, places, things, because I don't know the culture and their names are outside of my normal language reference point. And in the little glossary at the back of the book, I wish that they had the characters' names and like who they are and like their genders and stuff in the back, because I felt like a lot of times a character would be introduced and we would get all of their information and then they would go to the side for like a chapter or two and then they would come back and they'd just say their name. We wouldn't be introduced again because why would we need to? We already met them a couple of chapters ago, but I forgot their name and I don't know if they are a monster or if they are a person or if they're a person who is a nice person or if they're a person who is a bad person or what place they are from. And I kind of wish that there were more reference points for me to have that rather than to feel like I should have marked every time that a character came up. But that's entirely on me because I'm not very good with names in real life or in books, and I just needed more to reference in terms of who these characters were, especially because of the different cultural languages. It was harder for me to keep track when there are names of people who are different culturally and then monsters that have similar naming structures, like language letter-wise. Like there's a person with a name that starts with an A and ends in an A, and then there's a monster that starts with an A, ends with an A, and I just like, my brain didn't put all of the rest of the letters in for some reason. So that was something that made it a little bit more difficult for me, where I would have to like cycle back when a name was dropped to make sure like, is this who I think it is? And then like keep reading to see what they did and be like, okay, yeah, so that's that guy. And then that is that lady. And then, which took me out of the story a little bit, unfortunately, but it's my own fault. But the characters' names were in the glossary too. I also kind of wish that the magic was explained a little bit more. I understand why it wasn't. It doesn't really need to be per se. It's just that I didn't really understand where the spiritual power like came from and like why people had it and had access to it and why some people didn't have it or have access to it and like where it came from, how you replenished it, how you refilled, like how do you get stronger spiritually and all of that kind of stuff. And I understand why the school focuses on ethics because it fits in with the message of the story, the general theme. But at the same time, like could we have had one lesson, just like one, on spiritual power and like the basis of it? Because I feel like, yeah, people know, like the people in the school obviously know what it is and how they got it, but what if they were wrong, you know? Like what if they just didn't know for sure and they weren't super confident and it wasn't just well-known knowledge, because I don't understand it and I want to understand it more. So what can writers learn from this story? For one, you can have different levels of stakes throughout your story and it can still be amazing. You can have different directions of your stakes and have them coming from different sources, and it'll still be a really great story if you do it well and effectively and you make sure that it's all rooted in empathizing with your characters and getting your readers engaged with your characters. You can also definitely mix together different kinds of stories and have them be effective. Write the story that you want to see. This book is like, it's fantasy. It's a court drama, like a royal court drama, not like a legal order in the court kind of drama, just like kings and queens court drama. And it's a romance book, which it's all uniquely itself. And it's all just the one thing, but it's also all of those other little parts. And that's part of what makes it as good as it is that it's so genuinely true to itself. And it's not just trying to be one thing where you can put it on a shelf and know what kind of book it is. It's so many different things all at once, and that makes it really, really, really good. So you don't have to limit yourself to being like, oh, well, this is a fantasy romance. Oh, well, this is a fantasy court drama. Oh, well, this is like a whatever. You don't have to be just one thing. It doesn't have to be. And it's great if it's not. The last thing that I want to point out that we can learn from this book is that strong character development leads to strong storytelling. This book would not have been anywhere near as good as it is if it weren't for Katyani being as full-fleshed of a character as she is, and how she helps develop the other characters. How fully fleshed out Katyani is, that interacting with other characters makes them feel more genuine, and how that interacts with each other and the plot and the story and the empathy and the stakes. It all comes down to who Katyani is. And that's really, really great. All of the same plot points could have happened, but if I didn't care about who Katyani is, I would not care about the story. And I care so much about her. I'm honestly kind of sad because this book really wrapped it all up into a nice little bow, and I want more. And there's no more to have. So this is probably one of those books that it's like, I would give so much to be able to read it again for the first time. It was so good. Like if I didn't have this book in my hands physically right now for free, I would buy it. And I don't say that a lot about books. So this was like a really, really great book. Highly recommend it. 5 stars all around. That's all that I've got for you today. I've got a link in the description to where you can get a copy of this book from your local bookshop, and of course like Amazon and all of that. But you should probably check out your local bookshops. It's probably better for like everybody if you shop at your local bookshops. Just try it out. Just give it a whirl, you know? If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. It'll really help me out. If you don't want to miss any of my uploads, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell next to it. I am here every Tuesday and Saturday for Story Study Saturdays and Writing Tip Tuesdays. So I will see you guys on Tuesday in the future for Writing Tip Tuesday.